I want to mute myself. But this shit, I want or switching to this shit because this thing. First time I fucking saw this shit, holy fuck! I wanted to kill myself. I wanted to kill myself so fucking fast. Just want to make sure that my voice sounds all right. But fuck me, dude. Holy shit. I wanted to absolutely annihilate myself the first time I fucking watched this thing. This devil's advocate stuff is so fucking bad because he doesn't even understand. Like, he doesn't. He thinks he does, but he doesn't understand, like, anybody on the left wing. He just takes a bunch of people. But this shit, I want... Yeah, okay, we're good. Oh, fuck me. We're going in.
Only being so unpopular in your viewpoints?
Yes, often.
Devil's Advocate
With Skylar Turden. All right, welcome back to another edition of Devil's Advocate. I'm your host, Skylar Turden. Today we have a very special guest with a very lengthy resume that he wanted me to read for me. He worked at ABC, 2020, Fox News, a lot of books that he's written. You can follow him online at johnstossel.com, and of course he has channels all over social media, Stossel TV. Dr. John Stossel, thanks for taking the time.
I'm not a doctor.
Okay, so Johnny, it is. We're going to be talking today about single-payer health care. This was, I believe, by your request. That's a hot-button issue for you, correct?
One of many.
Okay, great. And I know you fancy yourself more of a libertarian, so not really like a populist sort of conservative. I just want to make sure off the bat I'm not getting anything incorrect or misrepresenting.
If you're against healthcare, then you're not a
Yes,
populist.
I'm a pure libertarian.
Okay. So what would you say is your primary issue then? So libertarian, I would presuppose being interested in human rights and personal liberties. What would be your issue with what would be a vast improvement over our current healthcare system? Single-payer healthcare.
Well, by single payer, you mean the government just pays for everything?
Well, I think that's a bit reductive and oversimplification, but a single-payer option where the government could provide an option for affordable healthcare for, the most vulnerable among us.
No. Okay. So already, single payer wouldn't have just give an option. It would be, that's what the purpose of single payer. It's not an option. It's the payment system. So yes, it's the government paying for everything, but it's not like they're just paying for shit. Like the prices right now, like, do you forget how the economy works? So when you can negotiate for better prices, and if the government is negotiating on behalf of the entirety of the United States, you can drag those prices down pretty fucking low, because without dragging those prices super low, they wouldn't have business. Drug companies and that wouldn't have business, or would have a much small, like, they'd have to move to a different country.
So let's go with that.
Well, I thought we have that. We spend $1 trillion a year on health care for the poor.
So this is where it's wrong. This is the first time I put a bullet. This is the first moment I put a bullet in my head, because holy fuck, I thought we already have that. Yeah, we want to extend it to all people, but obviously Devil's Advocate Crowder here doesn't fucking realize that. And he's just like, oh well, or he might say something. But yeah, we have that. But you don't really have that, and it should be extended to all people. Yeah, because there's a group of people who are in the States called the Living Poor or whatever, or something, I think, right? Where they make too much money to get free healthcare, but and a bunch of other benefits, but don't make enough money to actually pay for the thing themselves.
Okay, so then in your estimation, why does not everyone have affordable health care in this country?
Because when everything seems to be free, it gets screwed up. Because when everything seems to be free, it gets screwed up horribly. And the only thing that works anywhere in any consumer transaction is the free market. And we're not.
Except for all the countries that have a single payer system or nationalized system. Yeah, okay.
Not even close to that in healthcare. We're already heavily socialized.
Not even close. Compared to any other nation on the fucking planet, you're the farthest thing from heavily socialized. You're the only nation, developed nation, that has a system such as yours, a fucking free market system. And considering you have the worst form of healthcare out there, I think that there's a connection.
And you idiots want to make it worse? I think that would be tragic.
Well, we're only
How would you make it worse? If you enjoy the free what you have now, just extend it. Because he's not arguing against that shit. Like because most conservatives, what happens is they have to concede. So if you're an idiot, you'll say, "Well, we already have socialized healthcare. We have it for old people, veterans, and the poor." And it's like, yeah, we want to move that to all people because there's a specific range you have to be poor, and a lot of people sit just outside that range but still can't afford all the healthcare they need, or any of it. And every other developed nation has healthcare for all people. So if you're that type of idiot, then you're just dumb, because obviously the current system, like if you like the healthcare that we have that you have the old, why can't you extend it to other people? And then they give some dumbass answer, look, we can't afford it, even though that's been debunked 600 million times that you can easily afford it. And how can any other nation afford it if you can't afford it? And their argument for that is, oh, they can't afford it, even though they can. Obviously, like Canada's not crumbling to its feet. United Kingdom is not fucking falling over because of the healthcare system. Denmark, all those. Anyways, and then what's the other thing? Oh yeah, so if you're, I'm not gonna say a smart conservative because any position against healthcare is stupid as fuck. But they have to concede that all of it is bad and that all of it needs to go free market, even though that's just fucking like super dumb.
only 2 minutes in, out of the gate with the name calling. I wouldn't want to go in for a checkup with you as my doctor. Let me ask you.
I wouldn't recommend that either.
No, I'm glad we both agree on that. Free market, right now, if I'm not mistaken, especially with the repeal of certain policies from the Affordable Care Act, from none other than your president, President Trump, the free market doesn't seem to be working. Costs are going up.
Here it comes.
You can correct me if I'm wrong there, but if the free market is so effective and we're the most free market healthcare economy, why is our healthcare more expensive here?
Actually, really good question. Now here comes the dumbest answer you'll ever fucking hear in your life. Live?
As a percentage of GDP than like socialized countries. Why do you think?
Because we invent stuff, and we have a bureaucratic government that makes everything cost more.
What? You invent more. Well, you don't. Other countries invent things all the time. Cuba's making a bunch of very good healthcare advancements, and people make stuff all the fucking time. You're not the sole producer of everything healthcare. And what was the other point? Some bureaucratic government that makes things more like he won't elaborate how.
The only thing that really makes a market work is when the individual spends his own money. In healthcare, 7 out of $8 are spent either by the government or private insurance companies. And you can call them private, but it's the worst form of capitalism because they're making decisions for all their customers. And then many people want to cheat them.
So completely deregulate everything and don't even have insurance. Okay.
And so they spend a lot of time and money on paperwork trying to stop cheating, and all that makes things cost more. That's part of it. The other reason is the rest of the world freeloads off our innovation.
Yep. All the time, dude. Any advancement in the healthcare industry, even if it was developed in some other country, even if like other countries made it directly, made the you're freeloading off America.
Oh, really? How's that?
We invent the drugs.
No, you don't. You walk over to other nations, steal their shit, and then make a drug out of their plants. That's how it usually happens. It's not like you just walk over and say, we're going to take your shit, and then you don't get anything. It's basically how it works.
And they copy them and use them.
Nobody copies fucking anything. You have patents for a reason.
We invent the best technology. And that's expensive. And the government makes it more expensive because it takes 10 to 12 years to get a drug approved.
Sure. Well, listen, I certainly wouldn't...
Wow. So... if I understand correctly, he wants to remove whatever system is required to approve drugs. Now, I'm no fucking genius. That sounds like a fucking horrifying idea. Why is my thing, like, not actually full screen? Oh, dear. Huh. Okay, well, I'm just gonna deal with it like this. Well. Yeah. Whatever. Yeah, so just if a company makes a drug and it kills a bunch of, like, there's no testing. It's just fucking send the drug out. It's gotta work. Oh, everyone's super depressed because of our drug and they've killed themselves? Well, fuck, that sucks. We gotta try again. Free market, boys.
Dispute that.
If that drug there makes you kill yourself, just don't buy it, guys. Well, what about the people who, like, bought it first? Like, are they just, like, cannon fodder? I don't know.
More drugs are invented here, and certainly under this capitalist economy, that the pharmaceutical companies make a lot of money, but well, I don't really see it as a virtue when people's lives are at stakes.
It's a pretty decent question.
People's lives are always at stake, and I'm really glad that when I'm in pain, a pharmaceutical company may have invented something that'll make it better. And if that costs more, so be it.
Yeah, sometimes it costs an opioid addiction, but whatever. Let's get to the libertarian side of things here. You're all about...
So I don't know how to respond to, like, the last part of that, because it was just a bunch of fucking bullshit, basically, right? Like, I don't... There might be a legitimate response if I, like, go through it, but he kind of just said words at the end there. Like, I don't even remember what he said at this point. When you go back.
So be it.
Oh, yeah, basically, if things are more expensive, then so be it. Okay.
Yeah, sometimes it costs an opioid addiction.
I'm glad you, person who's probably very well off, well, if you just got a doctorate, then very well off. I'm glad you're willing to pay more.
But whatever. Let's get to the libertarian side of things here. You're all about basic human rights. I know Second Amendment, obviously a big freedom guy. Why do you not consider healthcare a fundamental human right as a libertarian?
Here comes the government's pointing a gun at your head argument. Ready?
Take gun rights. That's a right to be left alone and have a gun. Free speech is a right to speak.
Sure.
The right to health care means you're saying you have a right to force other people to pay for your care. That's very different.
How is it different?
He didn't use gun. Fuck. But he did say the word force.
Different from, say, car insurance.
Oh, ready? So car insurance, straight up, is actually you paying for other people's mistakes. That's why it's expensive. When you drive a Honda Civic, the car insurance is, like, more expensive because it's more likely that if you're, for whatever, I don't know how they decipher this shit, and it might actually just be, like, stupid, but because more accidents happen in Civics, it's more expensive to have insurance on it because they basically just expect you that if you're a Civic driver, you're going to get into a car accident. Who knows how they decipher that? Because there's no, like, correlation between, like, Civic drivers and car accidents. Just that more people drive Civics, so then therefore more people get into accidents. But anyway, so the insurance is more expensive on Civics, and that is, like, a proven thing. More car insurance is more expensive on faster cars because they're faster. Therefore, the accidents you get into could have a higher potential to be dangerous and blah 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 and stuff like that. And watch, he's just gonna I'm pretty sure, if I remember this correctly, he's just gonna completely say that that's not true.
I pay for my own car insurance.
Never mind. He just says he pays for his own car insurance, but the joke is that he doesn't know how car insurance works, because you're paying into a pool, or your payment goes into a pool of money, and then that company takes out money from that pool to pay for your car.
Also, in car insurance, insurance companies are allowed to price the insurance according to your risk. If I have a lot of accidents, or if I'm just 17 years old, they charge more. If I'm a man, they charge more.
Now, why? Maybe it's because other people get into accidents like that, so you're forced to pay more even if you directly don't have experience with that. Now, obviously, the 17-year-old one and men one could be lined up with just statistics, right? Based on like biological things. But if you just own a specific car, your insurance goes up, or is higher than other cars. 4-wheel drive. Oh, that one's like sorry, that one's also like a scientific thing because 4-wheel drive is safer than a 2-wheel or rear-wheel drive because 4 wheels are gripping the road.
Or because, well, we men think we drive better, we do get into more accidents.
Right.
And that's only just. That's insurance. But with health insurance, because of your foolish politician.
Like, how do you think? Like, this guy's so fucking dumb. How do you think insurance works? When he says I pay for my own insurance, so does he think that when he gets car insurance from a company, and his car is insured for $1 million, and he's 2 months into the plan, so he's made 2 payments, and he gets in a horrifying accident that maxes out his fucking insurance bill, right? So he's literally paying $1 million. The insurance company is forced to pay $1 million. If he's made 2 payments, where's that $1 million coming from? Oh, other people using the insurance. Holy fuck.
Friends, you're not allowed to discriminate, as they call it, against women or people with pre-existing conditions. That's not insurance. That's welfare.
So you think it would be fixed if we could, I just want to make sure I understand this, if we could discriminate against women, that's what would fix the current healthcare epidemic?
If insurance companies could charge women more, because women go to the doctor much more often and incur far higher costs, then insurance would be real insurance. It wouldn't fix everything, no.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure. Well, the reason to bring up car insurance is because, yes, you pay for it, but you are required to purchase car insurance. I do appreciate you recognizing that particularly white males are involved in more car accidents, so clearly not pulled over as often, so I'm sure you've recognized that about yourself. But you are by law required to purchase car insurance, of course, in most states if you want to drive an automobile vehicle. So why would we not apply that basic principle to people's lives and healthcare?
The principle behind being forced to buy car insurance is that if an irresponsible person, like, say, you, crashes into me, and I incur terrible costs, and you don't have insurance, I'm just screwed. So,
No, you're not. You're not screwed. You have insurance. The other guy's screwed because he doesn't have insurance. So now he has to pay for his own fucking car repairs and your car repairs because you're probably going to sue him. And yeah.
governments, I'm not saying it's a good idea, require us to buy liability insurance.
Sure, and if people
shouldn't have to buy casualty insurance to cover the cost of our own cars, and we shouldn't have to buy health insurance to cover our own bodies.
Sure, I understand that in theory.
Until you get into an accident you can't possibly afford. And now your car's gone. But if you have insurance, you get a car given to you while your car's given to repairs or until you buy a new car.
I know capitalists often like to act as though socialists and students of people like Marx and Lenin really live in theory, but it does seem as though you're...
And the same thing with the healthcare, right? If I, right now, a 19-year-old, have a heart attack, I have no money to pay for that. But, thankfully, I'm in a single-payer system, so I don't have to. Because as it turns out, freak things happen, and their argument for oh well, it's a minority. Okay, but you know what? It's not a minority. The constant people getting into accidents. I can't afford like basic healthcare. Yeah, okay.
Living in theory, as opposed to the real world where healthcare costs if someone doesn't have insurance, if they're not forced to purchase insurance, it ends up being more costly down the line. So if someone doesn't purchase health insurance and something catastrophic happens, we end up with the epidemic of the United States spending more as a part of their GDP.
So I ate pizza chip, and it was like I was eating concrete.
Right, on healthcare. Not to mention the quality of care. We'll get into that in a second. Don't get me wrong. We'll get into that in a second. But we spend more on average as a part of our GDP than places like, say, Norway or Canada, and that's because a lot of people don't purchase health insurance.
Because they can't purchase health insurance.
It's because people don't buy health insurance. The spending includes insurance and out-of-pocket costs. So I don't see how whether they buy health insurance makes a difference.
Well, if you don't see it,
Spending includes insurance.
Canada, and that's because we spend more on healthcare. Not to mention the quality of care. We'll get into that in a second. Don't get me wrong. We'll get into that in a second. But we spend more on average as a part of our GDP than places like, say, Norway or Canada, and that's because a lot of people don't purchase health insurance.
It's because people don't buy health insurance. The spending includes insurance and out-of-pocket costs. So I don't.
Yeah, but if you. If I know this correctly, if you don't have insurance, the out-of-pocket costs are way fucking more. So some people just don't buy health insurance because they can't afford the health insurance payments, and then they're just banking on the fact that nothing catastrophic happens in the next little while, or for the rest of their lives. But then something catastrophic does happen, and they're forced to pay out of pocket because they don't have insurance. Or even if they do have insurance, they have pre-existing conditions, quote unquote, and then they don't get insurance.
See how whether they buy health insurance makes a difference.
Well, if you don't see it, then there's no explaining it to you. Let's move on to quality of care.
Okay.
With all this money going around.
That more sounds like a cop-out because Crowder doesn't know how to explain it, actually. Because he's a fucking retard.
Obviously, in choice and free market, as you put it. Why does the United States have worse healthcare than places like the UK?
He's about to say we don't.
It doesn't even rank in the top 10. I mean, that's pretty empirical.
Empirical according to whom? Who says we have worse healthcare?
Everybody. Everybody.
Well, if you look at national indexes and ratings according to people who use the healthcare, the United States healthcare is not rated as high.
But there's also other studies, Crowder, that mention actual experts who go to each individual thing, like a fucking food taster, go to each individual restaurant. These people go to each individual fucking hospital. Like, fuck off.
There's places like Canada and places with a lot of single-payer systems, so, you know.
Well, studies by some smart, some foolish people have concluded that we spend a ton of money, and yet we die younger. And the reason for that, however, compared, say, to Norway or Switzerland, is not because our healthcare is inferior. It's because
we as a populace are more unhealthy.
We drive less. We drive more. We shoot each other more often, and more of us are fat.
Okay, I got 1 out of 3 right. Do you want to know why more people are fat? It's because your health industry is fucking awful.
You take out obesity and car accidents and gunshot injuries and deaths, we live longer than people.
But how would you take out gunshot injuries and death, you libertarian? You'd have to change the First Amendment, wouldn't you?
People in most other countries. If you take out the underclass in America, the group of people who have been taught by the welfare state to become dependent, who are often obese, who don't take care of themselves well, then Americans live longer than most anyone.
Well, that didn't take very long to turn around a national crisis.
Okay, so you know how you've solved that? People being taught to be dependent? Well, you fix your education system and teach them to not be dependent. Oh my God!
The vulnerable welfare recipients. That was fast. You think this is we're here at this problem right now because of people who need a leg up with Social Security?
No, but I think the statistic about why Americans don't live as long as people in other countries is because we're fat, we drive more, and we shoot each other more often, and because we have an underclass.
Well, I'm not talking about just I'm not talking about mortality. I'm talking about the quality of care as rated.
And like all those things could be solved. Like a bunch of socialized programs, like
Rated by polls polls after poll after poll shows people in the other countries are more satisfied with their care than the United States. For crying out loud, I mean, I think Michael Moore addressed this. Cuba, people are more satisfied with their level of care than the United States. How does that happen for the greatest country in the world, granted with all the shootings and obesity, as you just mentioned, but let's go with the moniker greatest country in the world.
Well, why doesn't Michael move to Cuba?
Here's the why don't you move to that country fallacy. Fallacy, I don't know if that's the right word for it. Anyways, regardless, it's because he wants to make America better, because he loves his country. Oh.
But in fact, when he went to get his stomach, what's it called, his intestines tied to lose weight, he didn't go to Cuba for their health care. He went to a private clinic.
Yes, because he's got money. And, like, he understands, like, his argument against is not that, like, it's not good or anything like that. Like, there's not, it's that it's not affordable. And then, whatever.
The Cubans claim their health care is better, and they convince useful idiots like you. But
Well,
so if it's not true, they lie about everything else. Why wouldn't they lie about this?
so people like, so we're talking about Cuba, and by the way, I saw that. I saw what you did there. I saw
They lie so much.
how you picked one country and chose to ignore the others. Very, very good sleight of hand. Let's take Cuba out, but the UK, Canada, people more satisfied with their healthcare than the United States. Doesn't that matter if we're talking about quality? Why do we not have healthcare that is to the standards of these people, particularly like in the Scandinavian countries, when we have more resources than any country? It seems to me like this has fallen apart.
Well, you lumped a lot of stuff together there, but people in those countries say that they like their systems because when the pollsters ask them, most people aren't sick. And when you're not sick and you know that you'll just be taken care of, you're pretty happy with the system. When you are sick and, say, in Britain, you get put in the emergency room, left in the hall for 2 or 3 days, and just read the British newspapers. They say they're in crisis. I get distracted.
Yeah, it seems
So, like, any evidence for that? No? Okay.
like you do. What you say distracted, I say thinly veiled argument. So it seems like you're preying on fear here, right, Dr. Stossel? Fear of the British newspapers, fear of mortality rates being higher, survival rates being lower.
Fear of being left in the hallway and not getting treatment when I'm really sick. Yeah, I'm scared of that.
But you're worth like what, $40 million? I don't think that's a problem. It might be a problem that the vilified welfare recipient who you addressed earlier might have to face. But Mr. Never Pulled Over, Dr. Stossel, might not really need to be afraid of that. So can we?
Yeah, like, I literally won't at all.
Leave the disingenuous arguments maybe at the door.
I don't think it's disingenuous. You brought up England and Canada, and they have great health care as long as you don't need it. But if you need it,
Well, then it wouldn't be great health care if you... What? What? It's great health care as long as you don't need it. Well, then it's not good health care.
you may be in the hallway for a long time, and you may die before you get care.
Didn't Ron Paul...
That never happens, by the way. Ever.
I know, I assume that you have like a bronze...
Because it turns out, like, if you're waiting, it's because you've been put on, like, the lower part of the priority list. But if you all of a sudden go bad, right? Like, okay, let's say you're sitting in there and you're waiting for, like, your surgery, whatever. But then something goes wrong and you need the surgery now. You get the surgery now.
Statue of him in your study there. Didn't Ron Paul go to Canada to have a procedure done?
Like we have doctors just sitting waiting on command to do a bunch of stuff. Sorry.
Study there. Didn't Ron Paul go to Canada to have a procedure done?
Oh yeah, this is when he says, okay, so what he's about to say is that Ron Paul went to a private a private clinic in Canada. So I'm going to let him say that, and then I'm going to retort.
Rand Paul, his son, did. And he went to a private clinic. And Canada, unlike the system proposed by Bernie Sanders and Kamala Harris, allows competing private insurance and private medical practice.
Now, let's see. I think somewhat, but all clinics are actually private. It's just that the single payer system gives you a health card, which is in my wallet somewhere. And when I go to a clinic, anywhere, any clinic, any private clinic, I show them that health card and I get free care. Done. Wow, amazing. So yeah, he went to a private clinic, and he might have paid for it, but it's still in Canada, where you say that it's vastly worse than the American system. So if it's vastly worse, why did he go to Canada?
And he found a good one for his particular problem and went.
Yeah, and I can walk into that clinic and get the care for free
to use it.
So I noticed a trend here. You mentioned Bernie Sanders there, Kamala Harris, and then esteemed, very esteemed members of the United States government.
But I just don't think you can get any kind of private health care from. Like I don't think you can go get private insurance, because it would fuddle with the single payer, right? As if more people get onto the private insurance, then you couldn't spend as much with the. You couldn't negotiate as hard with the single payer.
Then you mentioned welfare recipients, all of whom would represent minorities in the country. Do you think that maybe you have a blind spot, that maybe your views on healthcare could be perhaps a little racist?
What? I just didn't follow that. But
Kamala Harris.
Race has to do with this.
Well, it just seems the people that you're upset with, right? Kamala Harris, Bernie Sanders, obviously of Jewish descent. Welfare recipients tend to be people who are often minorities, as your Donald Trump has pointed out. Seems to me your problems tend to be with people in minority classes. No?
So this is the problem with Steven Crowder's fucking devil's advocate shit, is that he just grabs like talking points but then puts them in the wrong spot, right? So if most of the time when liberals say that the other side is racist, it's because their policies indirectly attack people of color and minorities and whatnot, because they're attacking the poorer class. So you could consider him. Now I'm not sure how much healthcare applies to this, but it could be. It could apply racially and stuff like that, because if you raise, let's say there's a new bill that raises the for whatever reason, because this is like a weird, like I don't know why a racist would do this, right? Because it doesn't really benefit anything. If you raise the minimum, like let's say, so healthcare for the poor, and you raise the minimum amount of money that you have to make, or lower it, no, raise it, yeah. So let's say if you get free healthcare if you don't make $10,000 in a year, and then you raise it to $15,000, and that eliminates 20% more white people and 50% more black people, then like it's like a racially, like it seems to be racially targeted. So that's what happened with the voter ID laws when they banned a specific voter ID, right? Like they banned a specific voter ID, and that voter ID was heavily used by minority groups. Yeah. But like this, like it doesn't really apply to the healthcare thing. But Kyra's just gonna use it because like memes.
Not to my knowledge.
Okay. Well,
Donald Trump.
No.
I didn't vote for him. I voted for the Libertarian.
Who is that?
Gary Johnson.
Gary Johnson. That's right. Yeah, because you smoke a lot of pot and stuff. I get it. A lot of people wanted Gary Johnson. Well, good for you. I hope that you feel really good about yourself getting Trump elected, voting for Gary Johnson.
I feel happier that
there's the other one. If you voted for anyone else besides, like, you got Trump elected, like
Trump than Hillary. Although Donald Trump is a really horrible, venal, narcissistic, immature, dangerous person. But I'm still glad he's president rather than Hillary.
You say that with a smirk. Why is that? Why? You mentioned all these negative qualities, and I agree with you on President Trump. But then, how is he better than Hillary? And I wasn't a Hillary fan. Obviously, I was Bernie all the way. But I don't see how that's superior.
Because, to me, you asked at the very beginning, What's my issue? My issue is Thomas Jefferson's. He said it's the natural progress of things for government to grow and liberty to yield. And this country succeeded because the founders created an environment where most decisions were left to individuals. And we grew the fastest and went from a poor place to the richest country in the world when government was less than 5% of GDP.
Also, my favorite is the title for this video is John Stossel versus Skeleton debate nationalized healthcare. They haven't once spoken about nationalized healthcare. They've only talked about single payer.
Now it's 40 and constant.
Well, besides talking about like other healthcare system, but it's not like they were talking about like directly how would a single payer or a nationalized healthcare system look like in the United States. They only talked about a single payer.
Constantly climbing and only doesn't eclipse the private sector because the private sector's been growing. And Hillary would have made that worse.
Wait, what?
Constantly percent of GDP, poor place left to is.
I don't see how that's superior. I'm a Hillary fan. Obviously, I was Bernie all the way, but I don't see how that's superior.
Because to me, you asked at the very beginning, what's my issue? My issue is Thomas Jefferson's. He said it's the natural progress of things for government to grow and liberty to yield. And this country succeeded because the founders created an environment where most decisions were left to individuals. And we grew the fastest and went from a poor place to the richest country in the world when government was less than 5% of GDP. Now it's 40 and constantly climbing and only doesn't eclipse the private sector because the private sector's been growing. And Hillary would have made that worse. Her people would have smothered us with a million little rules. And that really would screw poor people and minorities.
Yeah, it seems to really be true.
Well, he didn't actually say anything there. He just said that we've had it a certain way. We've had freedom for so long, and it's been so good. But he doesn't explain like how we've had freedom, because like if you look at it, like okay, well, what is freedom? Well, in the '60s, the boom, or like the '50s and '60s, that's when we had an economic boom, and well, that wasn't a very free. There's high taxes and blah blah blah. Okay, so he just kind of puts this grand statement of freedom equals goodness, because we're good now, and then here's how I think goodness can continue. And then he says that Hillary will bring rules, but doesn't describe any of them. And then it would not help us.
Druid people in places like Norway.
And it would help, and it would disadvantage like poor people. And he won't explain that one either.
Denmark and Canada. But it's always interesting to me that people point to Jefferson, and he uses, talking about liberty growing and planting freedom. It's a lot easier to do that when people doing your planting and your soil tilling are slaves, right? No.
Slavery was bad. Slavery is bad. Jefferson was wrong about that, but that doesn't make him wrong about everything. And Norway does pretty well because they are a small country with a huge amount of oil.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad to hear that you say slavery is bad. At least we agree on that. Something that seems...
Okay, so that's why Norway does well, but what about the other countries?
Most Americans agree on. And this is something I find curious, considering that you're a libertarian, and I know that you're not a big fan, as you've mentioned, of centralized government and bureaucrats.
Also, a smaller country, taxation, like earning money for your government is harder to do with a smaller country, because there's less people to pull taxes from.
So it seems to me that you would at least be familiar with the precept of democracy. 70% of American citizens want single-payer health care. 70%. Why does that not? Why do we want to leave that in the hands of a few people in the swamp, as your folk call it? Why should they make a decision that flies in the face of what 70% of Americans want?
We shouldn't leave it in the hand of the swamp. The best system is where individuals pay for their own health care, and doctors
But why?
make their own decision about what they charge.
But why? Also, they do in a single payer system. It's just that they're competing against the entirety of the population.
I'm sure 70% want that, and 70%, including most Republicans, support a minimum wage. And nevertheless, they're all bad ideas.
But why? Like, fuck, dude. Oh, fuck.
Wow, there's a switch. You're against any sort of a minimum wage. I want to get back to healthcare, but that's just
Yes.
obviously pretty intense. Where no minimum wage at all. I'm assuming this goes back to your disdain for members of welfare recipients.
Well, actually, minimum wages were passed initially to hurt black people who were coming up from the South and competing with white laborers. And so white legislators passed minimum wage laws to protect white people. But the country grew
Now, how does that make any sense? I have no fucking idea. Does he care to explain? Nope.
fastest when employers and workers were free to make their own deal. And that's the best system.
But how? Even an example of like minimum wage being used to like stop black people, like doesn't even apply because like a minimum wage isn't used to counteract Mexicans coming up and working for low wages. It would actually just help in that way, because if you have a minimum wage, you're forced to pay them the same wage as everyone else, instead of you having the ability to tell your fellow American, like, hey, I'm actually going to pay you fuck all because there's an illegal alien here who has no they have no bargaining power because they're here illegally, and I could just report them. So I'm going to pay them even cheaper, and because I'm paying them cheaper, I could find more of them, so you could take this wage or get the fuck out of here.
In your estimation, what do you think the average wage would be higher if corporations had their way right now without a minimum wage? I mean, is that actually?
He's gonna say it. He's gonna fucking do it.
I just want to make sure I understand what you're arguing.
That's what I believe.
Oh no! Whoops. Except for the fact that like every capitalist is against whatever you just fucking said. They want to have wages as cheap as possible. That's why they like immigration. And that's why they like huge countries, because you could pay your workers less and less and less because there's more people to take from the pool. Why? What is the benefit for paying people more?
The economy would be
Besides, like, no, but there's really not, because they could just make their prices for.
so free and energetic, and the animal spirits of capitalism would lift all boats.
Here it is again. The energetic spirits of capitalism would take over. The free market would take over and just do its thing. Well, what is its thing? Well, its thing. It would raise all boats. Well, it hasn't. Well, it will, because it's not enough. Well, the closer we get to full capitalism, the worse things get. So I don't know. Yeah.
Most people would make more.
Most people, but not all people, would make a sustainable wage. Is that what's? Most people would make more. Then what? How much is most? What is most? What about, like, is 51% most? Does that mean 40% are making fucking nothing? Or 49% is or like what? What it? Huh?
And why isn't that the case? It returns to healthcare, which is privatized, which we have insurance companies here. We do not have a socialized system. Why has that not raised all boats?
He's gonna say, well, because there's still some burden on it.
Deductibles and premiums are going up, and it's becoming unaffordable for the average American family. I'm not seeing the free market really helping them out here, Doctor.
Your assumptions are wrong. It's not private. It's socialized.
Ah, there it is. We just had a whole fucking discussion about how we don't want socialized healthcare, and how, like, we do have socialized healthcare, but only for the poor and the old. And now he's just saying that it is heavily socialized. Like, what the fuck?
How can it be private if 7 out of $8 are spent by somebody else?
I don't know where that statistic is from, but it's clearly fucking untrue. What does he think the other countries' systems are? If this is socialized medicine, if your system is socialized medicine, then, like, what isn't socialized medicine? which is, I guess, is anarcho-capitalism for him. And then what is us? Like, is it all socialized medicine, or is it some fucking crazy shit that, like, you would never think it to do ever?
7 out of $8. Where are you getting that statistic? You mean 7 out of 8 total dollars in healthcare in the United States are being spent by the government? Is that what you're saying?
Government and private insurance companies.
Private insurance companies isn't socialized. What the fuck? So it is private. It's not social. If a private... Oh my god. A private... Your private insurance company is a social program. Okay, I don't think you know what socialized programs are. Where does the statistic come from? Well, it's paid by 7 out of $8 is paid by the government, which you probably won't source, and private insurance. Sorry, wait, private? I thought you just said this was socialized. Well, yes, the private insurance companies are social. No, they're not. They're private, but they're socialized. But no, they're not. They're Do you know what private means?
Okay. Well, okay, so that still would, the vast majority of this...
Like, this guy, if you and your family pool your money together, that's socialism. To this fucking retard. Jesus Christ.
7 out of 8 would be private insurance companies. That's still a private business model, no?
It's the worst kind of...
So it is a private business... Like, what?
Private business model.
It's the worst kind, but it still is a private business. But it's the worst kind, but it's still private. Well, I guess so. Okay, so it's not socialized healthcare.
The only thing that works is when you pay, you make the decision. And we see this now with health savings accounts, where the government allows you to put to pay your employees a certain amount into a savings account, a medical savings account that they can spend as they want. And
I like when he says "as they want," as if like you getting cancer tomorrow is your choice, or you randomly having a heart attack. Oh, you get to spend this how you want. Yes, I get to spend. You're sitting in front of like 2 hospitals, like, fuck, my chest really hurts right now. But which hospital do I want to go to?
John Mackey of Whole Foods tried this and was surprised to see the reaction among his employees. They at first were nervous, but then started to go to doctors and say, hey,
starting to go to doctors while their fucking chest is exploding. Like, hey, doc, is this good? No, I'm gonna pay you $200. Okay, I think the guy across the street might. Hey, you, what's your price for fucking heart attacks? $215. Fuck. What's your price for heart attacks? $195. Oh, you're good.
Doc, do I really need that MRI, or is there a...
Do I really need that MRI? Doctor, I only have $200. I can't afford that mandatory MRI. Could we just skip it? Sure, buddy. I'm not gonna make you pay for what you don't have to pay for. You don't need...
cheaper place to get it? And...
Is there a cheaper place to get it? No, there's not. Okay, well, I guess I'm not getting that MRI. Well, if you don't take the MRI, you might never figure out if you have cancer. Well, that's my choice, dog.
Do I have to must this test cost $200? And the doctors often...
This is what the doctors will say. No, it doesn't have to cost $200. But you have no fucking bargaining power over me, because if you don't get this test, you might die.
Would ask, well, how are you going to pay? I'm going to pay cash. The doctor would say, really? And you don't have to wait. I won't have to wait 2 months until the insurance company pays me. Well, then maybe $100. And they wouldn't even know where to put it because they haven't had a cash box in doctors' offices for years. But that system brings costs down and makes patients think.
How would it bring costs down? Could you explain that, please? You just gave some weird anecdotal evidence thing or whatever. I don't even know if it's anecdotal because it's not like his experience. He's just kind of like, well, if you just paid cash straight up, it'd probably be cheaper. Unless it's not.
which parts of healthcare do I really want? Now, you don't understand this because you're not an old geezer like me, but I get Medicare now.
Oh, congratulations! You get actual health care. Whoa! Can you extend that to all other people? How about that?
I go to the doctor and nobody even talks about price. I never ask. The doctor never mentions it. I'm sure I get tests that I might not need because the normal price signals that make every other market work don't work in medicine.
So, what? So are you get Medicaid, so are you against it or for if you're using it and you don't ask for, isn't that a good thing? That you're not asking for the price of anything you are taking, and even if you might not need the test, it's good that you took it anyways because it might reveal something that you might not know about.
So you are taking advantage of Medicare, but you would be against, for example, Medicare for all, which would seem like a common sense solution that I know people like Bernie and Cortez have proposed.
They should take mine away along with everybody else.
Okay, so
But why? You're using it.
let's say but you're using it. So obviously being facetious, you're using Medicare.
If the government's going to hand out money, if they're going to give me a deduction for my mortgage, I'm going to take it.
So then you agree. It clearly fucking works. It's not like the system's breaking in front of your eyes.
Be a fool not to.
And how would you compare your quality of care with Medicare versus private insurance companies? Would you say you're satisfied?
Sometimes not. I don't see a difference between Medicare and private insurance companies.
This guy's fucking roasting his own fucking arguments. He doesn't see a difference. Maybe because there's fucking not. If anything, it's better. Like, fuck, Jesus.
But is when I go to the doctor doesn't ask who's going to pay until afterwards.
Right, but you just mentioned, for example, a procedure may be costing $100 or a few $100s, and you throw those numbers around. What about people who cannot afford that? Your suggestion to them would be, hey, just pay cash because I don't like Medicare. I mean, that's still very expensive. What if someone has a catastrophic healthcare event? What if they get cancer? I mean, they can't pay for these things out of pocket. You're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars in treatment. Let's get real here.
This is when he brings up that it will be cheaper without any evidence.
First, the reason it's hundreds of thousands of dollars for treatment is they're getting very new and special care that didn't exist before, and only because it costs a lot are companies willing to spend $1 billion to bring that treatment or drug to market.
What?
But secondly, you've heard of Medicare.
Besides, like saving the earth and the population that, okay.
Right? We do spend $1 trillion on poor people in America. And as a libertarian, I'd be happy to say get rid of that too.
Okay, wait, what?
Because if we didn't have this behemoth government making all these decisions, then private charities would step in and take care of it.
Oh, fuck, I totally... he doesn't even... shit. I forgot this is why I wanted to kill myself. Oh, my... He doesn't even answer the question on, like, how do you pay for the big... He just says, private insurance will take over. Fuck. No! Hold on, I gotta prepare myself. So a private charity would take over. Isn't private charity a pool of money that you pour in and are giving to people? Kind of like insurance, except for the person who's receiving it may not have paid into it. Interesting. Sounds socialistic to me.
And before we had this welfare system, We had enormous numbers of Catholic charities, Jewish charities. Not
Well, you might. You know what? Even if I would give it to you, even if that was true that you had these behemoths of fucking charity, which you definitely have not. People, fucking priests are asking you to give money to their charity, and then they take like 30% of it and buy themselves a fucking jet. Like it just doesn't happen. But anyways, let's say it is true. Then why isn't it around still? If this happened before, why is it gone? Who fucking did this? If it was clearly better, why is it gone? And why don't other nations also have the same system? Like,
religious charities who took care of people. We had
what people, where, when, why, what, where? Where's this evidence?
14,000 mutual aid societies, and they were often racist. It was whites helping whites, Koreans helping Koreans, blacks helping blacks, but they knew better who needed help.
So you remember his talk about how each individual person making a decision is better? Well, now, all of a sudden, a private insurance company is deciding who deserves the care better than the individual, which he is apparently for. He's just doubling back on why insurance exists, which is a one body, like insurance. Like single payer would exist so that one body of people would decide the price, or negotiate the price on behalf of everybody, because it's better bargaining power. And here, his stupid fucking retard example is he's talking about everything's better when each individual person makes a decision. Well, now a charity is deciding who is getting health care and who is not. Even if they're fucking racist. Like, what?
And who needed a kick in the butt. Most disappeared when government took it over. But if government disappeared tomorrow, private groups would spring in.
The racist private groups that you just admitted to?
To do the job better.
When they were racist and like randomly chose who deserved it and didn't deserve it, like maybe only giving it to their family members and not other people. And I won't give any evidence for how it was better, but it was better.
Well, hold on a second. It seems like I'm hearing some conflicting evidence from you, because you said before private charities were taking care of people, before the government intervened, but now you're talking about all of the expanding medical innovation that's taking place in this country since government intervention. So which is it? Is it before the big welfare state, as you call it, that we had more medical innovation, or the government helping with this, has it actually shown to increase productivity in creating new drugs and life-saving medicine?
No, it doesn't increase productivity. Innovation was happening just as fast or faster before. Now you
So where's this evidence? Who knows?
could say some of the government funding for basic research has sped innovation, but that's a tiny percentage.
So he's admitting that the government could help, and he won't elaborate on like the deeper things of it. He's just saying like maybe this one thing could help. So it said like
What government spends on healthcare.
Where does most of their money go spending then, if not
towards people's health.
on innovation, right? You say $7 out of $8 is spent by someone else. Where's
Medicare, treatments that government pays for people.
And you would do away with that.
We could pay for it ourselves.
Yeah,
And should.
We could pay for it ourselves, except for that's like provably false. There's a million poor people who can't afford fucking healthcare.
you would do away with that, which seems like quite a bit of a roll of the dice with people's lives. That if we did away with government, it seems to me that your argument here, and correct me if I'm wrong, is if we did away with Medicare and Medicaid and we allowed it to go back to privatization, hopefully some Catholics and race.
So my favorite is like, remember when he said like 2 seconds ago, he's like, that's one person making a decision for a bunch of people. So how is his example of the charities any different? Because he said that it's one group of people deciding who gets the care and who does and deserves a kick in the ass. And they were also racist.
Racist Koreans would take care of it. Do I have that about right?
Yeah, that's about right. And obviously it's not going to happen. And it would take time before the private charities would step up. But if the government had stepped up in the first place, There would be vast private charities running hospitals,
So do you have any evidence for this? No? Okay.
offering all kinds of healthcare innovation. Think about the Great Depression, how poor America was then. Vast 24% unemployment. People really had no money. How many people starved? Practically no one, because there were all these private charities. Government killed them.
I still spell it. Okay. New York West Street had been home to Bill Duffy's Old English Tavern. New restaurant that was open at the same address. It would be accommodate crowds that would have swamped Duffy's. Blah blah blah. The cuisine was humble: pea soup and whole wheat bread featured prominently on the menu, but it was dirt cheap, an aspect perfected by the establishment's name. The Penny Restaurant was a place for the downtrodden and not quite penniless to have a bit to eat. The establishment was not without precedent. So-called penny restaurants were in operation in the late 19th century in cities across the United States. Though popular with teenagers hankering to eat on a shoestring, the restaurants were usually run as charitable projects. T.M. Finley, who managed Salem, blah blah blah, pen restaurant run by a local brother and associated later at the enduring to afford poor people to maintain their self-respect and reduce the number of beggars. Okay, so bread lines were miserable. Hundreds waited hours for free food, were an all too common sight during the Depression. Penny restaurants were a dignified alternative. Okay, so it was just like there was free food being given out, but if you had a penny, you can go get bread at a restaurant. Yeah. Okay, so this is just explaining how penny. Okay, so penny restaurants existed. It wasn't. So by charity, it was just that things costed a penny. So they weren't. It wasn't exactly charity. See, what's this? Okay. So these don't really, well, whatever. So what we learned here is that private businesses existed, but the government was also giving food away. And it was hard for the government to give food away because they're in the Great Depression.
Seems though that more people were starving than without some kind of government intervention. Like if you look at the Model Cities program or what we're doing now, more people were starving in the Great Depression than today. Wouldn't you agree?
And what caused the Great Depression? Oh, massive deregulation. Fuck, who knew?
I could do the research. We found reports in a few states of 24 people who allegedly starved during the Great Depression. I assume now.
But in New York City in 1931, there were 20 known cases of starvation. In 1934, there were 100 deaths caused by hunger. There were so many accounts of people starving in New York that the West African nation of Cameroon sent 3.77. So I feel like there's supposed to be another thing. It just says $3.77 in relief. Huh. Let's see. I was trying to look this up earlier and I could not easily find reliable information on the internet, mostly due to the new popular claim that 7 million people starved to death in the Great Depression. Otherwise, for the most part, what I could find were claims that no one starved to death, which are mostly predicated on the idea that all deaths that seem like starvation are really severe malnutrition. According to the UN, malnutrition is still the leading cause of death in the world today. In the U.S., tens of thousands were dying during the years of the Depression from pellagra, which was cured in 1938 through Nansen supplementation. I don't know what that is. This is known because there was pellagra hospitals, and it was believed to be an infectious disease. So there are good records. Okay. New York was 10% of the U.S. population, was experiencing death by starvation, and would keep track much better than most places, such as Appalachia or Oklahoma, where I would think it would be much, much worse before the New Deal program started. There's evidence that many government agencies would conduct studies on malnutrition levels, but at the time they did not have an established definition or competent understanding of the symptoms of malnutrition would be, or even what foods person would eat not to die, source, blah blah blah. Okay, so he's got sources, so I'll just believe his sources. Well, fucking, I'll go to them. So I'd be very interested to know how many people died of malnutrition or lack of calories, if any estimate is possible, since it always demonstrated false to me. It isn't necessary to disprove the claim in the private article. According to my quick reading of The Life, Death During the Great Depression by Jose A. Tapia, Grandinosa, and blah blah blah. The only noticeable decrease of mortality was suicide. Increase of mortality was suicide, with a noticeable decline of mortality in every other category. It's interesting that his paper was written in 2009 before, shall we say, sensationalist Russia claim of 7 million deaths. Life expectancy increased by 6 years. What the fuck? Health research collected data on causes of death in United States cities during the Great Depression. Their findings confirmed the impressions of many observers in the 1930s. Mortality did not increase during the Great Depression. Public health analysis were puzzled by the improvements in mortality that occurred during the 1930s. Just what caused the gratifying showing is difficult to say. New York Times journal. Explanations for why there were no slumps in death. New York Times, blah, 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 included the slump is held to be has been a contributing factor in the New York Times in February 25th. Absence of unpreventable epidemics, New York, blah, blah, blah. A more normal mode of living than in boom time another. The effect of the public health work of the last 25 or 30 years has been cumulative in nature, and the medical profession is becoming more and more skilled in the diagnosis and treatment of diseases. Okay. They included a table that shows the trends of deaths rates per 100,000. Starvation does not appear on this list, nor does it rate as mentioned in the article. The researchers do acknowledge that malnutrition led to decreased health during the Depression, but not an increased mortality. Malnutrition was a widespread problem. Starvation was not. So 1929, so this is still all after the war. Okay. First death due to disease generally did not increase during the period, so the researchers did not miss. So wait, is this during the period? Okay, well that doesn't fucking matter. Because if this is just like the rate of death throughout the whole fucking thing, what was it before it, not during it? I don't give a shit what was during it. 10 people died. It was weird. During the Great Depression, 10 people died every second, and it didn't change the whole time the Great Depression was going on. Okay, well, what was the death rate before that? Because if the death rate before the Great Depression was 5 per day, and now it's 10, well, you just doubled your fucking death rate. Okay. Oh, fuck. Summary. Malnutrition was one of the most significant children's health issues of the early 20th century, but it is also engendered. Oh God, Jesus fucking Christ! Considerable controversy. Just how many children were truly malnutrition and how. Even if the definition of malnutrition defined consensus, the health authorities remain convinced that malnutrition was a serious and widespread problem. Indeed, the imprecision, holy fuck, of the surrounded the condition allowed it to be used metaphorically to advance a broad range of professional, social, public health agendas. Part of the lack of reliable dialogue about public health and nutrition policy. Okay. It seems like they just didn't do they didn't poll who was dying from fucking starvation. Oh, and this is a fucking okay. I might be able to get my hands on that because
nobody starves. That's true, but now we're vastly richer. Nobody should starve.
Well, there you go. So that's progress. So now it'd be proof positive that government programs do work. They do help. Fewer people are starving now because there's government infrastructure in place to make sure that they have, a hot meal and clothes on their backs. Hooray, welfare state.
The opposite is true. Fewer people starve because the country got richer because private enterprise made us richer, in spite of the welfare state.
Okay. But that's not. We don't want to abolish business. Just want health care.
Okay, so in spite of it happened, it correlates exactly to the increase of the welfare state, but it's in spite of it because there's also private companies. Right, is that, am I getting that?
It doesn't correlate exactly to the existence of the welfare state. That didn't begin until the 1960s, and health improved greatly.
It happened right after World War II. Sure, like more and more as it built up, but right after World War II, health free, or maybe not, maybe in the States, but everywhere else.
In America, before all this government intervention.
But the 60s had like the height.
Well, right now,
highest growth of economy and stuff like that was during the 60s, 70s, and like 80s, I think, right?
Something that's important when we talk about the free market is that claims are often denied when you're dealing with insurance companies. So unlike unions or workplaces where there's some kind of collective bargaining power, there's no bargaining power with insurance companies. So I get that you don't want the welfare state. I get that you want to do away with Medicare and Medicaid. But would we not agree that making it to where no claims are denied under the current system, that's fair?
No, people would claim all kinds of stuff. People my age think that they're just getting back from Social Security and Medicare what we paid in, that FICA deduction in our checks.
Right.
But average, we get triple what we paid in because we rudely refuse to die and we keep living longer. And I present this in doing videos to old people in rich retirement communities in Florida, and people say things like, "What? You can't get rid of Medicare. There goes my social life." Old people go hang out in doctors' offices because somebody else will pay.
Where, when, why? Where's the evidence for this? Why does this matter?
It's just a recipe to speed it up.
So let me ask this to give you the floor. I'm a little confused. Forgive me. I'm not a doctor, but let me ask you: how would you solve the current healthcare crisis? Then sounds like you're not a fan of insurance companies, but you're also not a fan of single payer. If Dr. John Stossel had his way, how would this work out? What would you do? You could wave your magic.
Well, everyone would just pay their shits.
Wow, it's not a question I often get because it's just not going to happen. We would have big health savings accounts. The tax law would change so that it didn't encourage employers to buy catastrophic health insurance for people, that we would make our own decisions. There would be a competing health insurance market, and smart people would only buy insurance against the really big costs.
So he's still for insurance, even though he said he's against it, because it's one person. So now, okay.
That they couldn't afford. And most healthcare spending would be done the way we spend on our iPhones and food.
Yes. You know what? Because it's life or death if you don't get that fucking iPhone. And that 8-ounce steak right there, you fucking need that to live, dude.
Pay for it ourselves. Costs would stop rising. Innovation would
How would costs stop rising? How? How would cost if each individual person had bargaining? How?
increase.
Like, why do you think unions exist, dog?
Do you have any examples of this kind of a model working anywhere in a pragmatic sense?
Oh, well, he's probably against unions. He whatever.
No. And no country.
In a pragmatic sense?
No. And no country
No evidence,
has a pure
awesome.
free market system, except poor countries, and they are poor in a million ways.
But I thought the free market would raise all ships. Why are they poor if they have the free market to carry them high and mighty?
The countries often cited as single payer, like France, Germany, Switzerland, are not. They have private insurance, and people pay out of their own pocket for a lot of it.
Oh, he's probably talking about fucking elective surgeries. Like if you need LASIK eye surgery. Yeah, of course you're going to pay out of pocket for that. What other countries you mentioned? France. Healthcare in France is also required mandatory health insurance. Also requires mandatory health insurance. The French healthcare system covers both public and private hospitals, doctors, and other medical specialists who provide French healthcare to every resident in France, regardless of age, income, or status. So single payer.
Let's say private insurance. France, Germany. The countries often cited as single payer, like France, Germany, Switzerland, are.
Okay, so France. Let's go. So that's Germany. So that's France. Germany. Oh, fuck. That's why. Whoops. Germany has a universal multi-payer healthcare system paid for by a combination of statutory health insurance, blah, 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 officially called sickness fund, and private health insurance, private sickness fund. Okay, so there's one that has a multi-payer system. Congratulations, you found one multi-payer. Still a step forward than what the United States has, and like not what you're describing.
Are not. They have.
Oh, and then Switzerland. The Swiss healthcare system is a universal, but is administered by individual cantons. That means everyone living in Switzerland must have basic health and accident insurance. Oh, single payer. And then it's just up to them on like what is like not. So they still have a single payer system.
Private insurance, and people pay out of their own pocket for a lot of things. Americans don't realize that, but the idea since Bismarck in Germany that somebody else should pay for your health care took over all the advanced countries of the world.
Somebody else isn't paying for your health insurance. You're all paying for everybody's health insurance. We are all paying for everyone's health insurance.
and it just grows.
And it just, so you believe that everyone...
And it just grows for no reason. It's totally ass backwards, but for whatever reason it's growing. Maybe because it's a good idea? Nah. It's growing because it's a dumb idea.
agrees with that premise, including all of, most of Europe, 70% of Americans, that people should share the burden of healthcare costs. In your estimation, what are they just delusional? Like, they're not, I don't understand, when it's overwhelming, does it ever become lonely being so unpopular in your viewpoints?
Yes, often.
It does. Oh, okay.
It does.
So what would you say these 70% of Americans in Europe who they all believe and they all have systems based around shouldering the burden together of the costs, they're just all wrong?
Yeah, they're all wrong, and they don't
And only you are right.
realize that shouldering it together means over time innovation slows, some people abuse the system, and everyone is worse off.
Do you have any evidence for that? Nope.
Eventually they realize it, just as your folks in Venezuela are realizing that now.
Oh,
The Venezuelan argument.
oh, come on. Oh, that's just such a cheap trick. You know that. That's always, people always say your folks, and they point to the worst example of socialism.
Well, considering they've been absolutely roasted by tariffs and a bunch of other problems, not like really socialist based, you're even wrong about your own fucking thing.
Fair criticism. I shouldn't have said that.
I don't know. Can you point to any mainstream American leftist politicians or figures who supported Venezuela or Chavez?
No, the correct response would be, well, then where's your high hanging fruit of the free market? Like, if you could just point to, let's say he's fucking right, and Venezuela actually, Venezuela is the evidence for failing single payer healthcare. That doesn't consider nationalized healthcare. That doesn't consider multi-system healthcare. So there's still two other options, even though, like, this is all hyperbolic. Because here we go. There is no evidence against Venezuela being like the example of a failing of single payer healthcare, because they have other problems as to why their country's shit. And then and then there's like the list of like what is actually better for like outcomes. It's like nationalized healthcare, then single payer, then multi-system, then whatever the fuck the United States has. So he has no evidence to point to why the United States system work, but he can point to why the single healthcare system doesn't work, even though you can't, because it's just because the country's failing, and then therefore, like, it's like if tomorrow, the earth opened up and swallowed fucking the United Kingdom, and he said, see, they realized that healthcare doesn't work for them because their nation is gone.
Yeah.
It's like it's totally unfucking related to like why like single payer healthcare isn't the reason fucking Venezuela is dead.
Michael Moore, you mentioned him earlier.
Okay, that's fair.
I just saw this video.
Michael Moore's not a politician. I had a sick voice crack there, but Michael Moore's not a politician. I'm fucking.
Of Bernie Sanders singing in the Soviet Union.
Okay, that's not Venezuela. That's the Soviet Union, and he can go wherever he wants, right? Libertarian.
With his wife, they went there on.
Doesn't mean it doesn't mean he supports the fucking government.
Honeymoon. Intellectuals have long believed in state planning.
Yeah.
What?
Intellectuals have long believed in state planning.
Yeah, I'll admit the optics there aren't good. Let me ask you this, going back to the idea of being a human right. You know, certain things are basic, fundamental human rights. As a libertarian, you obviously believe. Let me ask you this: what do you believe are fundamental rights in the United States? Let's not go global, but what is a human right? Because I think maybe that's where we're missing each other.
That every person has a right to be left alone, to have other people and the government not hurt them or take their stuff. As a libertarian, I do not agree with some of my pure libertarian friends who say that's all government should do. I think we should also have pollution control rules, because there's no good market incentive for me to have a factory that doesn't pollute your air unless government steps in to take care of that. And otherwise, that's it. Those are our right to be left alone and forge our own lives.
So things like police, roads. You don't think the government should be doing things like roads? You don't use roads.
Police is local government. And yeah, people band together and say, we ought to have a police force. And again, right not to be physically hurt or have people take your stuff, that ought to be a basic right. Most of the big roads, the best roads in America, were built by private contractors. People don't know that. I'm here in New York City where...
Yeah, but now they're owned by the government. What? No new roads are built. Okay.
Everybody talks about the subway as an example.
A lot of roads were one time built. Yeah, but what about all the new roads that
Government has to build the subways because no capitalist would find a way to make money.
Right, yeah.
People don't know that most of the subways in New York City were built privately and then taken over by the government because the politicians were outraged. They wanted to raise the fare from 5 cents to 10 cents.
Well, yeah, because then it.
And now the fare is about $3, and government runs it worse. But the private.
How do you have evidence for that? Like, holy fuck! The private company wanted to raise the fare to 10 cents, so doubling the fare, and now it's $3, so it runs worse. Well, if the private company kept it, what's to say that the fare wouldn't be like $10 or $6 or something?
The private sector will do a lot of these things better.
And do you have evidence for that? No.
Yeah. What about the buses in New York? Is that government?
Some are, and some are not.
Okay.
Most are government, and they're not so great. It's impossible to get fired.
Do you have evidence for that? Probably not.
Just about. If you're a bad bus driver.
Okay, well, how many bus drivers are bad?
Oh, for a bus driver, I was going to say, yeah, as a passenger, they can kick you off quite promptly. I had that at Penn Station a couple of times.
I don't see that happening very often.
Well,
but entrepreneurs, mostly immigrants, started van service to supplement the government bus service in parts of New York, and the city and the bus drivers' unions got the government to penalize them and in some cases ban them. Government doesn't like competition, especially competition that serves people better for less.
So I guess kind of final a couple of questions here. You mentioned having the right to not be hurt by someone else, that you think that's a legitimate role of government, correct?
Physically hurt.
Okay, so physically hurt. So let's change that to, okay, it's the government's job to make sure that someone's not hitting you, right, with a baton or whatever before the gun laws got crazy out of control and we have the mass shootings that we have now on a record scale. But let's just say, okay, you're getting physically hurt.
Scale.
Oh.
Mass shootings are not up. There's just more media coverage of.
Oh, they're not up? Yeah, you're right. They've been staying the same for so long. Staying the same at the very fucking top. But record scale as in like you have the most of all nations. Except for like war tournaments.
Well, tell that to the victims of Sandy Hook in Vegas, and but hey, different strokes. I wouldn't. Maybe some of them are welfare recipients. All right, so let's just change this to someone hitting you and assaulting you. It's the government's right. It's their duty, their job, a legitimate role for them to step in and protect you. Now change that person hitting you to, for example, a pharmaceutical company or an insurance company taking advantage of somebody, denying a claim, making drugs or services unaffordable, so that person is, when we're talking about very real physical harm, facing death in the absence of fundamental health care.
Yeah, very different. They're not hitting me. They're saying, I made this thing and you can't have it unless you pay me. And they have every right to do that.
Okay. And if you don't pay me, you die.
So how would you
And I get it for free because I made it.
help these people who, for example, can't afford it? People who can't afford this care, and they're just, is your alternative for them to die and decrease the surplus population? I'm trying to understand how this works in a real world setting. People need health care. Some people can't get it. What do you do with them?
Two things will help, though. One, if you
Private charity.
if you let the market work, the prices will come down so they can.
Do you have any evidence for the prices coming down? No. The prices are actually increasing, and for whatever reason you think that currently you don't have a private system, or the United States has a private system, when they clearly do, and the prices are at an all-time high. So what evidence do you have for the prices lowering? How would they possibly lower if currently, with restrictions already on them, trying to make things cheap as possible, how are they still so fucking high?
Afford most everything. And secondly, private charity
Ah.
for people.
So, where's your evidence for private charity? Where has a private charity come in and been like, yep, we're going to help all this shit?
Private charity. And that's where we go back to the Koreans helping Koreans and the blacks only helping blacks and whites only helping whites. This is the John Stossel utopia for America. I just want to make sure that we're not getting wires
think
crossed.
Americans are pretty generous. I gave a lot of money to charities last year, and I think we who have done.
But the government taxing you more would probably take more, instead of you giving it to a fucking random charity who probably So let's say you give $10 million to a charity, and then they pocket $5 million out of that because they can do whatever they want once the money's given to you because there's no regulations against it because you're in a libertarian society. So now they pocket it. Now they only have $5 million to give to people. So they give what's going to happen is they're going to give the minimum amount to keep their public image as high as possible. That's what will happen. That's just like provable. Because that's how like businesses work to make as much profit as possible while keeping their image as positive as possible. That's why you have companies all over Twitter and stuff like that now, because they're like, oh wow, if we just make ourselves look good on the internet, all of a sudden people's public opinion of us goes up because we made a couple memes, and then they don't have to rely on their products being good because they have this cool little fucking gizmo. They have the fucking great Twitter, guys. What's an example of this? Graphics seem to be going up in video games, but then the gameplay is just kind of like stagnating or like even like disappearing because the game looks better because people are fucking dumb and they go, look, pretty game, I'm gonna buy it, and then they buy it and it's a shit game. Or it's based off of the image of the game, or like the thing they've already built off of it. So an example of this would be Fallout. Fallout's original games are very good, and then Fallout 3 and Fallout New Vegas came out, and they were very good. And now, as games come out, they're only hoping on the name carrying them, so they put less and less into so they know that the name will sell them their game. So what they do is they just take out story elements. This is Fallout 4. There's definitely not as much story elements in Fallout 4 as in Fallout New Vegas. So you don't have to pay a fuck ton of people to make a story, but the gunplay is different and new. So people will buy it because of that and because it's Fallout and because it looks shiny, which is much cheaper to do than add in a million story elements.
Well in life, want to help other people.
I don't know where my original tangent is, but yeah, basically private charities wouldn't actually help people that well, as evidenced by them not helping people right now.
And will.
Well, how would you explain then the rich just keep...
Oh, yeah, and then I was going to say taxes. So if the government taxes you for $10 million, they will use that $10 million because they have public accountability. If the government takes $10 million and doesn't use it, so they do that for everybody, then the public will just riot and throw them out. Or an election will come around and you'll get voted out.
Getting richer and the poor keep getting poorer, and the middle class is disappearing if that's the case.
That all those assumptions are wrong. The middle class is disappearing because more of them are becoming rich.
Nope.
The rich are getting
more of them are becoming poor, actually.
Absurdly rich. The
rich are getting absurdly rich. Okay, well, does that benefit society in any way? Well, no.
Mostly because the stock market.
Oh, and if the middle class, let's say that's true, the middle class is getting richer, and the rich are getting even richer. So then, what's happening to the poor? Well, then they would have to be getting poorer because there's no way that everyone's just getting richer. That wouldn't make much sense, right? Because the only way people are rich is because there's poor people, right? So if the middle class is getting richer, like the compare like how you can tell they're richer is because they have more money than people below them.
Going up, but the poor aren't getting poorer. The average income has gone up, not as much as the rich, but it's gone up.
Your income for the year went up by $1. See, you're not getting poorer. Well, everyone else is vastly outpacing me, and prices for food and stuff they are going up because they can afford it, and I can't at an increasing rate.
Plus, poor people have access to
Healthcare,
like iPhones, which make their lives better.
Wait, oh my! I forgot about this fucking one. Holy! Poor people have access to iPhones, which makes their lives better. Let's ignore. I'm not gonna ask the question how does it make their lives better, because I don't even want to know the answer. But do you think that maybe health care would be a better alternative?
Created by capitalism.
Yeah.
Perfect isn't one of the choices.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, people now have addictions to their phones because of capitalism, and we see that as a success. I don't know that I would agree with you. Any closing thoughts on socialized healthcare, where people can go to hear more of your arguments? If there's anything that you would like to leave people with that have gotten incorrect, because I want to recap. I think that healthcare is a human right. I believe in not letting people die and being compassionate. And you just want people to buy healthcare, and if they can't, to die. Do I have that about right? You can. Final word.
Final word is that I congratulate you in that even though I have a hunch that Steven Crowder is behind you, you get me going in this process.
Wow, I don't think you would. If this gets you going, I don't think you would want to talk to it like an actual fucking anybody who's liberal.
Get me worked up. Secondly, every week I make a short video that does a much more articulate job than I've done today arguing these points, and I hope your listeners can find that.
And where would they find that? I don't, obviously, I want to be generous
subjugate myself to this.
Plugs.
Stossel TV. Just Google it.
Stossel TV, and that's on Facebook, YouTube, and John, I also believe just that johnstossel.com, and okay, what was your PhD in what was that, Dr. Stossel?
No PhD. Higher education. It's a waste of money for most non-intellectual people like me.
Okay, so not Dr. Stossel, johnstossel.com. Thank you very much. This has been Devil's Advocate. Skylar Churn, your host. We provide the information. You decide. We'll see you soon, guys. Thank you. How do we get out? Hey there. I hope you enjoyed the segment. We've done it quite a few times. I believe this is the fourth or fifth time. And, it allows us to really shine a light on the alt-right, the conservative right, whatever they want to call themselves today. And you can hear arguments from both sides. Watch one of these videos playing in a box next to me, or subscribe, hit the notification bell so that you'll be notified of any future installments. We're really hoping to get on YouTube Red, and just waiting for green light from Wojcicki, so we're doing pretty well.
Okay, let's look at the comment section for this fucking video. See how fast I want to kill myself. Crowder's devil advocates are better than TYT's real arguments. Okay. This guy looks exactly like every guy I see hanging out at my local coffee shop. Right down to the coexist tattoo? Yeah, I'm fucking dumb. The passive-aggressive voice is spot on too. Crowder's most accurate character by far. Okay. Hi. Oh, fuck. Uh-oh. Wait. Okay, hold on. Hi, I live in Ontario. I paid hundreds of thousands of dollars into our healthcare system from age 14. Really? I really doubt you paid taxes when you were 14, but let's give it to him. Until age 33. When I needed it, I discovered it was not there at all. I was unable to get a GP, a family doctor, for 6 years. I spent 6 years on the Healthcare Connect wait list. When I finally got a doctor, He was incompetent. I suffered for 5 years with a painful condition that ruined my career and almost killed me. That could have been treated at any time with a prescription of 4 pills. When I was sent to see experts, I discovered that I knew more than they did. Bizarrely, when I saw a neuropath, they actually accurately diagnosed me, but couldn't prescribe the medication. The GP refused to prescribe me the medication based on the neuropath's diagnosis. Okay, so this is a huge anecdotal argument, but I need to figure out what's a neuropath. Oh, naturopath. Fuck, I'm retarded. Oh god, oh that dog. Wait, hold on. Okay, we're good. Wait, are we good? Hold on. Okay, good, I didn't just dox myself. Naturopathic medication for naturopathy is based on the belief that the body can heal itself. Oh, so the thing that's like completely disproved by a bunch. Yeah, okay. Yeah, snake oil? Yeah, okay. Finally, after going from walk-in clinic to walk-in clinic, after 7 years and doing my own research and study, I was able to show a doctor at a walk-in clinic how all of the procedures they had been following were not correct. I gave the doctor a lesson drawn from the CDC website on how to do their job how to do her job properly. I will always be thankful to her because instead of having an ego trip, she actually admitted she had been wrong and adopted the correct diagnosis procedure. So what was that procedure? Who knows? I finally got a medical diagnosis and was issued the medication. 80% of my symptoms disappeared within a week. Turns out I had 2 different things, a genetic condition and a serious infection, both combined to produce my symptoms. What were they? The infection amplified the effects of the genetic condition. What were they? One of the reasons I had much difficulty getting to the point of them realizing it was 2 things working in tandem against me is because Ontario doctors refuse to hear about more than 1 symptom per visit. I'm not joking. This is not true. They ask you, what are your symptoms? What? Okay. What? Holy fuck. Whew. I'm not joking. The reason given is that they are too busy and overworked. They have too much of a backlog. They also treat you like you aren't their customer because you aren't. The Gov pays them after you give the Gov tax money. The family doctor they assigned me actually misdiagnosed my condition as some kind of psychological disorder because I insisted that painful symptoms located in 2 different areas were related. Okay, first, I don't know how true this family doctor thing is because I'm not sure how my parents got our current family doctor. They might have chosen, they might not have. But we've moved from that doctor an hour and a half away, and we can still keep that doctor. Amazing. We can choose where we want our doctor. Amazing. Same with our dental office. Dental is more privatized than I think it's fully privatized actually. So never mind. That's bad. Example, but we have the same family doctor and he's like an hour and a half away. Amazing. He can use anecdote, so can I. Okay, I like how he hasn't mentioned what any of his fucking problems were. Hopefully he doesn't in the replies. You have to understand that our system is not competitive. These are bottom of the barrel house league practitioners. Yes, when you go to school for 7 years, you're bottom of there's like a standard. Doctors that can compete will go to the US, obviously, except for there's a bunch of evidence that they don't, I'm pretty sure. And even if they do, it's more of a problem for the private system because they're capable of paying them whatever they want. That's not our fault. That's not a failure of the single-payer system. The ones who can't, and the odd rare saint, they end up here in a socialist healthcare system, which it's not at all. Single payer is not socialist. Nationalized would be socialist. This is just a step. Anyway, I'm not gonna. Holy fuck! It's certainly closer to socialist than nationalized, but nationalized is more socialist, so you can't call both things socialist. Anyways. It's like a spectrum, and one is closer to full-on because socialist, whatever, healthcare system like the one Canada should be ashamed of, at least Ontario anyways. If you want to feel good about your socialist self and gamble on never getting seriously ill, then please by all means continue to present Canada's healthcare system as something Americans would want. Except for they want it. So it's not like they would want it, they do want it. If you aren't ignorant or some kind of psychopath, then as a Canadian, make sure you tell Americans the truth about Canadians' healthcare system whenever you hear one claim that it's some kind of promised land, like this Skylar Turden character here. So tired of these vape smoking vape pseudo intellectuals, like ones who use fucking natural care, pseudo electros with their mustaches talking down to us regular folk. Okay, let's see. How you know when he's playing? You do know he is just playing a role of an asshole. Who? Skylar Turden? No way. I've seen Skylar interview a whole bunch of people, from Jordan Peterson to Ben Shapiro, and he's always been a complete and total turd. No way. That's just an act. No one can sustain that. I understand. I understand why. I mean, this is obviously satire, but it's just fun. Oh, wait, are people... Oh, my God. Wait, what? Are you saying you think Skylar... I'm not going to read this shit. In Canada, you can be screaming in pain for 14 hours in the emergency room before a doctor will even come to see you. Then nope, that's not true at all. Then you still need to wait 2 to 4 hours before they will give you painkillers. Nope, that's not true at all. You know when you get delivered... You know, like, when you're in... Yeah, dog. You come in, you board the fucking ambulance. They wire you up to the painkiller. Oh, what the hell is it called? Whatever. They wire you up to the painkillers, and then when they take you off of that, they just completely disconnect you and leave you in the road. They're like, we're done. No, the whoosh is on you, buddy. Oh my fucking God. I'm gonna kill myself. In Winnipeg, you can even die in a wheelchair waiting to be seen in the ER. True story. Winnipeg, death in a wheelchair waiting for care. To have a catheter changed, and some 34 hours later, St. Clair was found dead in his wheelchair after waiting in the hospital's emergency room for more than a day without being seen. Okay. This just sounds like a mistake that anybody could make. Even a private So let's read. Found dead? Okay. A group of doctors and academics from across Canada say an Indigenous man who died while waiting for care in Winnipeg emergency room in 2008 was killed by racism, and say the subsequent inquest into his death didn't address the real problem. medicine and health always sees itself as a benevolent and caring for people. It's not true for many indigenous people. It's a violent encounter, said Barry blah blah blah, a professional at the University of Manitoba, blah blah blah. Lavalier is one of the 5 members of the Brian St. Clair Working Group, which releases an interim report and recommendations on Monday, nearly nine years to the day after the death of its namesake, Brian St. Clair. St. Clair was 45 when staff at a community health care center sent him to their blah blah blah. Changed him. 24 hours later, St. Clair was found in his wheelchair. In an inquest into the death, healthcare workers from the hospital said they assumed St. Clair was drunk and sleeping it off, had been discharged previously and had had nowhere to go, or was homeless and had come to avoid the cold. The final report, complete in 2000, concluded that St. Clair's death was preventable, but put forward 63 recommendations to overhaul the front end of the Winnipeg's healthcare service, including how patients in ER are triaged and registered, but triaged. But the final report from the inquest stopped short of calling St. Clair's death a homicide and did not echo the family's call for public inquiry into how Indigenous peoples are treated in the healthcare system. Oh, so it's actually just racism or portrayed onto the Indigenous population, which is a real problem in Canada. Oh, fuck, who knew? It's not actually the healthcare system that failed them. Well, it is in the sense that they were racist towards them, but it's not because it's Uncle Pear that happened. It's because people are racist and they didn't take care of them. Okay. Oh, fuck, I should link him that article. Damn it, hold on. Just in case I dock myself. This is too unrealistic. A leftist would say, I want to make sure I'm not misrepresenting your views. Oh, okay. I feel like Mr. Stossel is secretly like, why am I doing this? I think a lot of people are thinking that. Crowder does a better job of being an SHW than most SHWs do at being an SHW. Proof that the conservatives conservatives know that jobs what? The vape totally sold me on the leftist hipster stereotype. Okay. Steve, you're pretending to be a Democrat is more rational and intellectual than a real Democrat, except for the ones who are... Oh, whatever. And Miles McInnes should team up and debate Ben Shapiro. Okay. I bet you that's going to happen, and then they'll be like, what, I did? I debated it. Fuck. This is why Steven Crowder actually does it. It's just so he can avoid real debates. He just does this thing. I'm not a doctor. Class's way to start. Okay. There's a power mustache. Okay. Skylar Turner. Okay. The other joke is that Skylar Turner Trust Fund is heavily invested in pharmaceuticals. Okay. When you have that character down pat. No, he doesn't. Canadians come to Florida to go to a doctor. The reason the lines are too long. You pay under the table, but they would rather come to America and pay for a doctor. Of course, not all people can afford to do that. Well, okay, exactly the problem. And if they're sent to Florida from the Canadian government, they don't have to pay for it also. After seeing this and seeing just how familiar he is with leftist arguments, which he's not at all, and how good he is at defending them, not... I'm fucking done. I'm fucking committing suicide right now. I'm going to the fucking washroom and popping my fucking brains open with a pistol ass. A pistola. Okay. Well, thank you for tuning in to the nobody who did. Maybe someone. I don't know. No one's here. But I love you all. Hopefully you might see that in VOD. I do definitely want to end my life. And, yeah, that was, fucking torture, dude. I just... See you later. I love you all.